Garrett Epple is not the problem, and neither is Matt Gaudet. Hi everyone, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Tommy McKee from Sidewalls Lacrosse, and welcome back to another video. There's a ton going on in the lacrosse world with the start of this PLL season. I just started live tweeting games last night and had an absolute blast. Lacrosse Twitter has been going crazy over what's been happening. The obvious number one topic of conversation is Matt Gaudet. Unless you live under a rock, you probably know that 1, Matt Gaudet is a huge trash talker, and 2, Garrett Epple decided to make his feelings known on the situation last night in the Redwoods vs. Chrome game.
Night against Water Dogs. Jordan Wolf. How about that passing inside?
Oh,
Matt Gaudet.
Oh boy.
Wow.
Oh boy. Oh
wow.
boy.
3 big hits against him, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 flags on the field.
Bruh.
Matt Gaudet became an overnight sensation with his trash talk in the Chrome vs. Chaos game, and Barstool Jordy interviewed him on the crease dive, so I recommend you go check that out if you haven't listened to it already. So, what do I think about the situation? Well, let me start off by saying that Garrett Epple is not the problem, and neither is Matt Gaudet. But more on that later. First, let's start with the trash talk. Trash talk is a part of any sport, and in his interview with the crease dive, Gaudet clearly explains how he uses it to get an advantage on his opponents. I personally was a very similar player to Gaudet in college and used some of these same trash talk tactics. We had a saying called palms up, whereas if you can get in the defense's head enough to make them go palms up and start facing teammates and blaming each other for mistakes, that's when you know you've won the game. Personally, I think that the Chrome had already beat the Redwoods in that last game because Matt Gaudet had the Redwoods palms up before the first whistle even blew. I do want to say though that I think there's different levels of trash talk that are acceptable. For example, in the college and pros, I think trash talk is definitely a part of the game. But in the youth and high school games, definitely don't want to see kids trash talking out there. I just think from a professional standpoint, these guys can understand that the trash talk is a part of the game, the business, and the same thing applies for the college where there's a lot more at stake and you're dealing with much more mature individuals than you would with these high school and youth players. So we don't want to be encouraging youth and high school players to trash talk because at the end of the day, that's not what our game's all about. I myself in college did plenty of trash talking, and it really does help your team gain an advantage if you can get under the skin of the defense. As an attackman at Air Force, I remember having very physical and verbal battles with Bellarmine, Loyola, and Ohio State especially. But even though we were trash talking and playing physical all game, there was still a high level of respect during and after the games for each other. It would get chippy at times when the ball was on the other end of the field and there was a lot of things that went on that the refs couldn't see. Like, defenders cross-checking you in the back and giving you little whacks to the legs and the arms. And you saw some of that in the Redwoods game with the Chrome doing that to Ryder Garnsey and the Redwoods defense doing that to Matt Gaudet. That chippiness is all fair game to me. That comes with trash talking. If you're going to trash talk, you have to expect some sort of retaliation. So, what level of retaliation and physicality are acceptable? Well, I think some of these clips that they showed during the game were, like I said, all good. But obviously the Epple play that everyone's talking about was way over the line. The initial hit was good, but then when a player's on the ground, you absolutely cannot cross-check him in the head like that. It's extremely dangerous and can do damage far beyond what is getting someone back for some words they said to you. I think the NLL actually sets a good example for what's okay as far as physical retaliation goes. In the NLL, you'll see guys face wash players or maybe grab their face mask and jar their head around a little bit to make them uncomfortable. But this is not doing any real damage. It's just letting them know that they're not going to take any shit from you. The other thing you'll see NLL guys do, which you saw Brody Merrill do in the Water Dogs game, was give some guys some playful cross checks in the chest or upper body to show their displeasure. Now, it doesn't mean you're not going to get flagged for it, but it's much, much safer than cross-checking someone in the head while they're on the ground. Oh yeah, one more thing to add here. I think Epple deserves a 1-game suspension. That's basically the equivalent of a 3 to 4 game suspension due to the shortened format of this championship series. So why do I say this isn't an Epple problem then? Well, I truly think that the problem lies with the way these games are being officiated. They're letting the players get away with way too much, and that in turn is setting the precedent for guys like Garrett Epple to do what he did and not suffer real consequences for it. One example of this is that the refs have to start cracking down on these defenders who are just teeing off on attackmen's free arms like Ryder Garnsey with no intention of trying to check the stick and jar the ball loose.
Trying to turn that corner, doesn't get there. The other 2 game 1, so good start for the Redwoods goal of the season. Shot clock down to 6.
You can see in these clips Ryder Garnsey getting absolutely abused without the defender at all trying to get the ball. If these ball carriers were doing a two-handed cradle, I could see the defenders getting away with this a little bit more, but I still think they need to be aiming those checks down toward the hand and the stick. Otherwise, this just raises tensions between the players throughout the game and allows situations to get more and more out of the referee's control.
With it, shot clock to 2. Strong defense there by Chrome. Big hit at the end by Will Halls.
I'm all for letting everyone play, but there was also some simple trips and pushes in the back that the refs just have to call. Otherwise, it just raises the tensions between the players and encourages them to disregard the rules even more. So I'm all for some good trash talk and physicality within the whistles as a response to that, but the referees have to start calling these games a little tighter. Otherwise, you're going to lose players to injury, and situations like the Epple and Gaudet one are going to continue to happen throughout the rest of the championship series. Let me know what you guys think about Matt Gaudet's trash talk and the Epple Gaudet situation in the comments below. I know some people have been calling for 3 games or for him to be kicked out of the entire rest of the championship series, but I just think there's too much responsibility on the refs for you to just pin it all on Epple like that. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be live tweeting my thoughts as much as I can throughout the rest of this championship series, and I'll see you all soon. Peace! So as I'm editing, the PLL released a statement on the Epple situation. They gave him 1 game and the max fine. Personally, I think the PLL made the right decision giving the 1-game suspension. If they would have just ejected him during the game last night, I don't think they would have had to do this, but you can't go back in time. While editing, I also talked to some veteran lacrosse players and asked them about the officiating. They personally leaned on the side of the defense and thought that the offense nowadays is just way too soft, and so a lot of these checks on Garnsey and the other guys you see, they were completely fine with and said that's how it used to be back in the day. So there's that as well. Maybe I'm soft. I don't know.